Hi, everyone. My name is Tae Kim, and I am the COO and CFO of Martin UAV. And Martin UAV is a company based out of Texas in the United States, and we design and manufacture UAVs in the Group 2, Group 3 space. Our primary product is the VBAT UAV, and today I'd like to share a little bit more about our product, our company, and our industry in general. So I'm going to start sharing my presentation here. Give me a moment. So as I mentioned, VBAT that's pictured in this slide is a vertical takeoff and lift Group 3 UAV. And before we get into it, I'm not sure how many of you are actually familiar with this drone. So I'm going to start off with a video to familiarize you with it, and then I will get into a little bit more of the details. Before we go here, just to give you a little bit of idea of what we're looking at, on the top left side, left corner of this slide, it's VBAT taking off in a mountainous area. The middle picture is VBAT on the back of a small ship, and we do training out at sea, and so the vertical takeoff and lift is critical to that. The top right slide is it's a picture of the entire system that's required to be able to fly the VBAT. So you have the aircraft, the GCS, the antenna, and obviously the carrying case. The two pictures in the middle, one on the left is our guys doing some engine maintenance on the aircraft on a ship. That ship is actually in the Pacific Ocean. And the slide on the right, or the picture on the right, is the same, it's on the same, a similar ship in the same region out in the Eastern Pacific. And then the slides on the bottom, those are with some of our government customers when we do testing and development with them. VBAT is modular, so you can put different types of payloads and different types of radios that you want on them. So sometimes our customers will ask us to modify and swap out those radios or payloads to allow for different capabilities. So I'm going to transition us over to the video, and I'm going to have the music on, but I'll provide a little bit of overlay. So again, this is VBAT flying off of the back of a maritime vessel. There are no other VTOL Group 2 or Group 3 UAVs flying off of a vessel. The takeoff and landings are all automated. This is just a quick video to show you how quickly we can assemble and launch a VBAT from the box. And that will come into play as we talk about exportability and transportability of the aircraft. So this is taking a system out of its transport case and assembling it fully to launch, and the bottom left tells you how long it takes to do that. This is where we do our testing. This is North Dallas in Texas. The aircraft, the QRC that you see on the ground there, that's a 1 meter by 1 meter target, and the aircraft knows to pick that up and land on it. So whether the landing pad is moving, or whether it's still or on a ship or on top of a car, it doesn't really matter. If you choose that you're going to land to that pad, the air vehicle will track that pad and land to it. The fastest we've moved while landing to one of those pads is around 10 knots, and that's out in the ocean. So obviously there's the sea state and the waves that it has to deal with as it's landing. Here you're looking at the VBAT perform some of the maneuvers that it's capable of doing, because it's VTOL, and it's not a hybrid quad kit VTOL. It's a true VTOL with a ducted fan, which allows you to stop and stare at a hover. So if you're out flying in the mountains, or if you're flying in an urban area with lots of tall buildings, the VBAT can hover and stay still for an extended period of time. Our competitors that are the quadcopter kits cannot do that. So this is a video of VBAT flying with the US Army in Germany. This is VBAT flying in the Pacific Ocean during a rainstorm. And this is just some more footage of it landing on a vessel. In terms of payloads and what it can do, it's similar to a lot of other UAVs, whether it's Group 1 to Group 4, in having the EO/IR camera sensors. And as you all know, the camera technology has gotten better and better over the years. And what that allows us to do is fly higher and be less detectable to the enemy while we're flying. And camera technology with software allows you to do a lot of incredible things like tracking and using that information to detect the enemy. This is just some more footage of the VBAT flying. Again, the takeoff and landing is all autonomous, and we only have people on the ground there to catch it just for safety reasons. Okay, so I wanted to share that with you so that for those of you that have never seen the VBAT before, sometimes seeing it in a video, it makes it easier to understand what the technology is about and what it's capable of doing. So I'll move on to the next slide here. So going back to the VBAT, you can kind of tell how large it is and how it operates off of that video, but it's basically 9 feet by 8 feet. The propulsion system that we have in it is a 2-stroke engine. It's about 14.5 horsepower. Currently, we have a new version that's under R&D that's going to be about 25 horsepower, so significantly stronger. And it's going to be significantly, in terms of capability, the endurance and the ability to fly higher is going to happen. The speed is not that important, as you all know, in UAVs, but we can fly up to about 90 knots, 160 kilometers. Endurance is anywhere between 8 and 10 hours. That's if you're flying horizontally. If you're hovering, obviously that time frame is going to come down a little bit. And the payload assembly, which is here in the front end of the VBAT, that can be changed to anything that you want. So if your mission profile expects you and the customer wants you to fly with a camera, you can do that. We have space in the mid-fuselage section here to be able to fly with different radios that a customer may want. So the Army may want to fly with a certain radio. The Navy may want to fly with a different radio, and we have the ability to change all that out. So this is, again, a real simple slide about how UAVs are used. And if you're familiar with the smaller drones, it's very similar in that you have to control it at some point. And for our system, that point is the ground control station called the GCS, which is right here. And really all it is a computer with connected to a radio, and the radio is connected to a tracking antenna. And so you have the GCS here, then you have the tracking antenna here. And what the tracking antenna will do is that antenna will relay directly to the aircraft itself. And the aircraft has a radio on board as well to allow for you to receive command and control and telemetry of the camera system and what the camera system is looking at. Now, what is a little bit unique about military application UAVs is that you have the ability from air vehicle itself, you can allow it to broadcast to different entities. So you can allow it to broadcast to a soldier on the ground that doesn't have anything to do with your unit or your company or your organization. But if it wants to see the video feed via IP network, you can log into that camera feed and receive that downlink. As you know, that happens a lot in theater when you're in a combat environment where soldiers from a different unit may want to look at that footage that the UAV is providing. Another means of communication is the tablet GCS, and we'll explain a little bit more moving forward. But the tablet GCS, what that allows you to do is you don't need to carry around a laptop. You don't need to carry around all this extra equipment. You have a small Omni antenna. You have a handheld, a tablet, and you can control and look at what the VBAT is doing from there. Now that's common amongst a lot of UAVs, but for a Group 3 UAV, this is a pretty unique system because it allows for you don't need any type of infrastructure. All you need is the battery to charge up the tablet, and then you move on and you can move around and fly it. So for us at Martin UAV, when we go to demonstrations, and the way we've seen units use it is you can go into your car or your truck, and the car or truck could be going down a highway, and you can still control the UAV. And the thing that makes us most unique, being a VTOL, vertical takeoff and lift, is that you can land on these small boats. For a system that can fly for 8 hours and carry the weight that we can carry, there is no system that can land on these small type of platforms. Going into the equipment itself, you saw here, this is the top right here. It shows you a picture of the aircraft, the antenna, and the ground control system. This here in the middle is an example of what a payload looks like. And this sensor ball allows you to see day and night wherever the aircraft is flying. The bottom left here is just a blow up of the ground control station. Again, you can substitute this out for any type of standard laptop with a couple screens if you'd like. This is the tablet version. This product here is called an avalanche antenna, but all it is a directional antenna. And that antenna has technology in it to allow for, as you're at point A and whatever you're talking to is at point B, as that's moving around, the antenna will track it. So it's not satellite communication, it's direct line to site, point A to point B communication, but it allows you to move, and the antenna will move with the platform itself. The picture down at the bottom right, all we need is a small truck to fit the entire system. And this is what separates us from a lot of different platforms that we'll talk about here moving forward. This is pretty redundant, but the part in the slides before, what it doesn't tell you about is the radio system. So this Persistent Systems is the brand that we use, but we've used other brands. This is what connects the ground control station, the expeditious system, the antenna, and the aircraft itself. So you need a radio system on the ground connected to some kind of antenna. On the ground, we use the tracking antenna. And then in the aircraft, we use the same radio, but the antenna are obviously on the wings and not a ground antenna. In terms of packaging and transportation, I showed you the picture of it in the truck. This is a picture of two systems in the back of a UH-60 Black Hawk helicopter. I actually used to fly these helicopters, and so typically the back area is used to transport 11 soldiers. But if you take the seats out, you leave the 4 seats in the back, and you take 7 seats in the middle, and you can transport 2 VBAT systems in the back of a helicopter. This year, the U.S. Army used it to transport from one fort to another as it was going to another exercise. We can also, we have other transport cases that allow you to transport it more together, so you can set it up a little bit faster. But the key here is that it's a 2-person lift. So really 2 people can move this whole system around, which makes us extremely unique. And I would say for our customers in the US and internationally, most of the time we're selling to government agencies. So Department of Defense, Ministries of Defense, Border Patrol type organizations. And people want VTOL because VTOL allows you to take off and land from confined areas. So whether it's on top of a building, or you're in the woods, or you're in the back of a ship, you don't need that much space to take off and land. Well, one of the problems with quadcopters and other technologies for VTOL is you have these propellers that are exposed, and there's no covering or protection from those exposed blades. And if you've been around aviation, you know that exposed blades or propellers can be extremely dangerous, and it's a very sensitive topic amongst owners and leadership within organizations. So for us, as you can see, anytime you see a VBAT land, we have people right next to it, and we've had 0 incidents or safety issues with our platform, which is it's very important for general officers and acquisition folks within DoD that it's a safe system. And the safety has gone a long way in what we're able to do. And that safety allows you to land in smaller and more confined areas. So as different programs of records around the world are closing down, whether it's in the US or in countries in the EU, Asia, the Middle East, South America, Central America. These are the legacy platforms. So this one right here, as an example, is the Mq7 Shadow. This is a system that the Army's been using since early on, back in 1997. And they currently still use this system. This system requires a catapult. This is a catapult that launches the aircraft. And then in order to land, it requires a runway to land. Now, the aircraft is capable of carrying a lot of weight, which is great, but if you don't have a footprint of an airfield or at least a grass strip that's large enough, you can't operate a Shadow. And that's what's driving this requirement for VTOL around the world. Like I said, whether it's a land unit or a maritime unit on a ship, everyone is looking for VTOL. And the VBAT offers that. You don't need extra equipment. All you need is your air vehicle, your antenna, and the ground control station, and a power source, and you can really fly anywhere. You put it in the back of a truck, you move on, and then you can land. So for ground units, getting rid of the requirement of a runway or an airfield is very important. As you get into combat environments, it's even more important because the logistics trail that follows a airfield or that type of footprint, it continues to add up. So this is a little bit different. The concept is the same, but it's a little bit different. So in the maritime environment, out in the ocean, the only platforms that have been operating are ScanEagle's Blackjack type systems, where you have a catapult to launch it. You have this large crane here that allows you to catch the UAV. And as you can imagine, that's a problem if you have all this equipment in the back of a flight deck. If you launch a UAV, the Navy unit or the Marine Corps unit are not able to launch any more aviation operations off of that flight deck. So that's what's driving the VTOL requirement for them. And you can see that VBAT is the only one that can do that type of mission within the UAV space. The problem with the hybrid quadcopter VTOL UAV, the large UAV, is that because the quadcopter technology uses 4 different motors to take off, there's not enough stability in it to take off and transition in flight, moving vessel. If you know how ships work, there's typically a lot of turbulent air coming off of the superstructure of the ship and going onto the flight deck. So typically what will happen with the hybrid quad is that once it takes off from the flight deck and starts to transition, once the winds start to hit it, it will lose stability and it's not able to make that transition. So that's something that's unique about VBAT that has allowed us to operate on Navy and Coast Guard and Marine Corps vessels around the world. This is just a slide to show you. I'm going to transition a little bit into kind of the company and as Martin UAV, but as a UAV company competing in the DoD space. I'm going to share a little bit about how things work here. We do not market to consumers, or we don't market too much to commercial businesses. And that's because our business, as you can imagine with our UAV, it's a military grade product, and typically it's used, the CONOP, the concept of operation, lends itself to military government type customers. So to date, for us, we focus on US DoD and international MOD organizations. So these are just some of the opportunities that we've had. We market heavily in Europe, heavily in Asia, in the Middle East, and in Central America. And those are all places where there are currently UAV requirements and UAV uses. They don't use VTOL platforms yet because the larger VTOL platforms are just coming to market, but that's something that we're heavily focused on and working with different countries and different organizations. The VBAT, we go through the State Department and the Department of Commerce to make sure that we have proper licenses to export to different countries, but that's something that we've been doing historically. And then importantly, from my position as we're building this organization and building the business, we found that we're a technology company that manufactures most of its own components because US DoD requires the bulk of our system to be made in the US. And so we're an engineering company, we're a manufacturing company, and we're also a defense contractor. So that just requires a lot of unique skill sets to be successful. Most of our competitors are large defense aerospace organizations, or there are some smaller companies that are strictly engineering type companies that are trying to get into the space. And then there are companies that are a hybrid like us, where you're a defense contractor, but you're also heavily focused on engineering and manufacturing. So what we've done over the years is to attract talent and retain talent from that have a military experience. I'd say over a third of our company are veterans. So they've either been a part of the Army, the Navy, the Marine Corps, or the Air Force. And that helps with our relationships with the government agencies. And it helps because a lot of those veterans have been on the user end of products like this. Like I mentioned, myself, I operated Gray Eagle drones while I was in the Army, and I flew UH-60 helicopters. So I'm familiar with using these type of products. And then on the business side, it's nice to have program managers, engineers, and manufacturing leaders that have experience in large defense companies like Lockheed Martin and Northrop Grumman and Boeing. And further along on the business side, we have people from experience in companies that are not necessarily associated with defense, but have experience in finance or operations in other companies in engineering or manufacturing. And that is the end of my presentation. I hope that I was able to share a little bit about the VBAT UAV and the space that we're operating in and the competition that we're playing alongside of. I would say that as this industry and this technology it's a weird place because there are a lot of unique technologies that are being developed for subcomponent level parts, whether it's radios, it's sensors, it's encryption type devices. On the software side, AI and other, just using smart technologies to further advance the product. But at the same time, if you're a product and a company that's operating in the defense world, whether it's US based or outside of the US, the procurement cycle can be awfully slow. And so it's a unique challenge to take a product from development to production and keep up with the requirements, keep up with the technology, but at the same time, make sure that you can hit these procurement windows that are coming open in the various programs around the world. If you create a technology that's too far advanced but the timing doesn't work with a procurement opportunity for the Army, let's say, then you have to wait till the next opportunity to showcase that product. And so for those of you that have operated in the DoD procurement space, I'm sure you know what I'm referring to, but that's a challenge that we're always facing here with product development roadmaps and tying that to procurement opportunities around the world. We're the leading candidate for every VTOL program in the US, the Army, the Marine Corps, Special Operations. To give you a little bit of history on Martin UAV, the company was acquired from an engineer in 2015. And since then, we've been taking all of our resources and turning it into a company, from a startup to a company that can win and execute government contracts. So that the difference between us and other startups that go direct to consumer or to other businesses is that from the very beginning, we knew our focus was going to be to sell to the US government. And that requires a lot of infrastructure and a lot of general admin type functions that a lot of startups don't have to deal with until you gain enough traction. So for us, the biggest challenge was being able to prove to the government that not only do we have a great product, but we have a company that can execute and deliver that product. And that's been our focus for the last few years. I would say with regards to folks and organizations interested in selling to the U.S. government, it's a unique space, and I think that's consistent around the world. We've submitted proposals in several different countries around the world, and it's very similar. It's not just, hey, I have a great product, so please buy it. You have to be able to write proposals. You have to have a contracts team. You have to have a good legal view on how you're going to execute. You have to have strong program management. And for us, the different pillars of our organizations are engineering, manufacturing, quality, program management, business development, and then on kind of the back end, finance, HR, to be, because every single one of those departments have a requirement when you're submitting a proposal or a contract to the government. And with that, I think we're going to have an opportunity to take questions and have more of a discussion. So thank you.